Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 6th edition of the Communicators Assembly Point, an online event series brought to you by Adfactors PR in partnership with Reputation Today. In every edition of this series, we focus on one sector to learn how communication leaders from that sector are navigating reputation in this post-COVID era and how they plan to take communications ahead. Today, we will hear from senior communication leaders from the technology and telecom sector. Before I introduce our panelists, let me remind you the hashtag for the session is CommsAhead. Share your learnings from this session using the hashtag CommsAhead, and don't forget to tag our partner, Adfactors PR and RepToday Mag. This session is also live streamed on YouTube at bit.ly Reputation Today on YT. That's all caps, bit.ly Reputation Today on YT. So if your Zoom connection has an issue, you may watch it live on YouTube without the option of asking any questions, of course. For those who have joined in using Zoom, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A box. A warm welcome once again to all the 150 plus attendees who signed up today. I would like to now welcome our panelists. Harleen Sachdeva, Head of Communications for India at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Minita Kumar, Head of Corporate Communications for India region for HMD Global. Mr. P. Balaji, Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer at Vodafone Idea. And Tuhina Pandey, Communications Leader for India and South Asia at IBM. And moderating the panel today is Priti Setia, Group Head for Technology at Adfactors PR. Over to you, Priti, to steer this conversation ahead.
Thank you, Anubhuti, for these warm introductions. I take the privilege and the honor for moderating this session today. Thank you, everyone across the screen for joining us today. It is a pleasure for all of you to join us and taking out time from your views. We wish all of you a great safety. On behalf of Adfactors and on a personal note, I want to thank each of our panel members today for accepting our invitation and joining us for this conversation. Well, given the topic and the theme for today, which is communication and managing the change when it comes to telecom and tech sector, we couldn't have curated a better, richer, and a stellar panel than what we have today, which represents not only enterprise, but the consumer sector. As we dive into the conversation, what is believed as change is the only constant. But I think it's today the rate with which the change is moving and change is happening that really matters to most of the organizations today. And another reality is technology is leapfrogging and helping most of the businesses thrive and transform themselves. So with that, I would want to start this conversation, and I would request Anubhuti to help us put together the first poll question to the audience. Friends, we have a question on your screen right now, which is poll number 1. Would request all of you to choose an answer for poll number 1, which is the 2 technologies that you think shall usher the enterprises to their transformational journey. Take about a 10-second pause and choose 2 of your options and technologies that you think will usher enterprises to a transformational journey. Thank you very much. We are back onto the screen, and I would start this conversation, Balaji and Tuhina, with you, probably understanding we spoke about technology transforming and leapfrogging digital transformation. So what was digital transformation 5 years from now and what it will be today is extremely different. But what, according to you, is the elevator pitch for digital transformation or business transformation today?
Who would you suggest go first, Tuhina or me?
Always a gentleman, huh?
Oh God, no, it has to be the lady. Tuhina, after you, please. Please go ahead.
Right. I will take that. So thanks, Priti, and what a fabulous panel this is. Elevator pitch for digital transformation, the way I see it, really lands on 2 levels. One, of course, is what's in it for me, the typical, go-to line that we all communicators have. The need, are we addressing the need of the user or, the audience at the other end? The second thing, which I think is very important today, is profits and purpose. Aligning both those in any of the elevator pitch today is absolutely critical. And why I say that, that sometimes the brand consideration or brand differentiation may not be there, or a product differentiation. But why people choose to engage with you or work with you is because they trust you, they like and relate to what you stand for. And therefore, in today's time and age where trust, security, safety, health, there is a vulnerable population out there. The moment you have these weaved in and you say it authentically and they know what you're saying is credible, I think your propensity to engage is that much more. So I would say that's probably the framework for an elevator pitch that works best. And finally, it's a no-brainer on digital transformation. As you said, the humanity, the world has changed. It's a sea of connected humanity that we are working with. And, Balaji, of course, knows the networks and the 5G revolution and everything that's going to connect all of us. So if the world is in a digital age, how is it that businesses and enterprises, which are a subset of the larger world, be not in that journey?
Sure.
That was absolutely brilliant. I think if I would just paraphrase words that Tuhina used, it's about planet, purpose, and of course, those two things are extremely important in any dimension you look at. And so I would say that if you look at our sector, fortunately, we've been in the center of particularly all this action that's happened since the pandemic broke out. Clearly, for us, the ability to be a sector that has enabled individuals, societies, and enterprises to stay connected with their loved ones and their business ecosystem has been massive. And so I think the trust factor that Tuhina mentioned came automatically with the turf, but it's extremely important to keep re-emphasizing that. People get it that digital transformation is important and critical for survival and for thriving going forward. I mean, technology has progressed humankind over the ages, and this is just that it's got turbocharged and you're kind of moving at a rate which is much faster, like you pointed out. I guess from our point of view, to the larger customer base, and we serve nearly 300 million of them in India, it's been about having two dimensions to it, which is focus a little bit on not just the technology part, which is important, but also to have the human touch. The mix of technology and human touch has been important for us from individuals' point of view. And therefore, while we focused on taking the customer journeys digital, because that's really what they're looking for, it's also important to understand that there is a bunch of customers that still depend upon the human touch. And therefore, to keep that going in pandemic time with lockdown and with restricted movement and work from home, for our staff has been a massive effort. So that's a journey for us, saying that, look, we are here for you. Make sure you stay connected to the world and with your near and dear ones. I think that's the broader context for us, if I were to internalize it as Vodafone idea, to the words that Tuhina used, which is the trust factor.
So thank you, and really appreciate these responses. I borrow something that Tuhina started saying, that, there is very little differentiation that most of the organizations have today. And therefore, sometimes it's very important for brands to stand out. My question would be to Harleen and Minita, as to what do you think should be a brand story for brands today to stand out in the clutter? Harleen, you could
go first, or
yeah.
Should I? Okay. I think for any brand story, whether it was pre-COVID, and I think most importantly post-COVID, I think it would be the why. I mean, if you determine your why, the purpose, why does the brand or the business exist? I think once you figure that out, everything kind of falls in place and you are able to connect the dots easily. Second, I think would be understand your product, your services, your entire business portfolio, because for any communicator, I think it is critical to understand the story which you want to tell. And the third, I think, would be audience. Just ensuring that the stakeholder mapping and customer understanding is up to date itself is the most critical element before crafting any brand story. Considering the fact that we now live in a digital world where the message The content transcends across geographies and channels, platforms at a supersonic speed. It has become even more important that the brand story is consistent. I mean, there is no room for faux pas here. And most important, have an authentic brand story. And as Tuhina said, and Balaji reaffirmed, to build trust and leave a lasting impression, I think it is very important for brands to be authentic, to be human, to be humble, and be real. A brand story should resonate with your audience. I think these are the top 5 elements of any brand story I would go through.
Sure. Minita, your views on what should be the brand story?
Yeah, thanks, Harleen. I think quite a lot of what I was thinking is what Harleen mentioned. These days, there is so much of news all around us, and it can be very tactical and in the moment. Journalists will pick up your releases, there'll be social feeds, consumers will be reading news proactively, and they'll be just stumbling upon news. The lines between social and news is getting blurred. So what really is important is for communicators to be much more strategic in their storytelling, the storytelling about the brand. Like Harleen mentioned, it is important for the communicator to establish the why. Why do you exist? What is the vision of your company? What's the purpose of your company? What has been the story so far? Where is your current place in the environment today? How are you seeing the future unfurl? So in that sense, I think the brand story becomes so much more strategic. It brings in a semblance of, I would say, sanity in the crazy environment. So a communicator's task is to bring that sanity in that craze. Also, when you're communicating consistently with your core messages, your core values, you'll also be able to wade through a lot of what happens today, the nasty crisis that you might come across, the fake news that might bombard you. That constant narrative of the brand is really, really important. And I think, when you create that brand story, that why becomes very important, how you are for a consumer becomes very important as well.
Sure. I think as the vanguards and, custodians to brands and reputation value for most of the organization, what we heard from all of you really stands true. I would request Anubhuti to show up the poll results. Our question was, which 2 technologies shall usher enterprises to their transformational journey? And here is answer. So we have a leapfrogging number for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think that's the most trend-setting response today. Thanks, Anubhuti. You could take this back, please. Thanks. Artificial intelligence and machine learning doing so much in enterprise sector today. I'll open this conversation and question to Tuhina and anyone from the panel who want to join as to how do we humanize this? Do we even understand, does an end user does even understand what AI and ML is doing to them? Because I think proportionately, most of the businesses today are investing huge amount of the technology innovation and investment in AI and ML. But does that translate to the consumer and consumer story?
I'm thrilled to see the outcome of that poll, and I couldn't have, thank you for that question, really. I'll tell you, just yesterday, I was attending an event where IBM and CBSE rolled out AI curriculum for the students for 11th and 12th. But that's not the story. The story is when I saw 3 of them present cases where they've leveraged AI to solve problems in NCR about women's safety, medical kit for elderly, remote healthcare management. And these are young, bright students who are using technology to make an impact on people. So technology is nothing but how it really goes down that last mile. For example, during the pandemic, you had so many these chatbots, citizen chatbots, on the fingertips of the citizens. We are talking about ethically. Again, comes back to all my panelists and the emphasis on trust. But I think technology is as powerful as its usage. And it's really about people and how we leverage it, such powerful technologies. I think AI is a great, great standout technology if used for good tech in action.
Sure. So audience never lies. So maybe in our poll, 5G didn't transform to become that top technology. Maybe to Balaji and Minita, are we not evangelizing 5G, or is 5G coming with a little bit of doubts? This sample
So
does not believe.
I think the topics were so relevant, and I think the audience did pick up AI for the right reasons. So let me put it this way. I think the fact is that you asked a question on humanizing technology, and that's, I think, the core of everything. In the end, if we focus on the outcomes, as long as, and I think there was some down below, you had a second question on the important stakeholders, and customers came up pretty high there. And so to me, that's really crucial. So as long as you understand that you focus on the outcome, which is to make it easier for consumers to engage and use your products and services. And if AI is the means that you choose to use the technology to do it, then so be it, because technology helps you to get to the outcome. So to me, putting the customer at the center of any technology that you deploy in order to make it easier for them to engage and get their outcomes out of it, the better it is for you to humanize the whole thing. The question that you started with asking. On 5G, I think these are early days. Clearly, it will have transformative impact in the coming years. It will take a little time for us to find the true use cases for our country, which is what we'll build towards. But then the good news is that there's a lot of buzz around it. Technology exists. Trials will happen soon. Industries are getting ready to figure out how they can utilize it. And more importantly, as you start to have, I think I saw IoT as the second, transformative technology in the poll. So as massive number of things and devices get connected, then the need for 5G will become even more relevant.
And if I may just add a line to what Balaji said, big proponent of 5G technology as well, because that is pretty much the bedrock if you're talking about the connected humanity. So absolutely, I think 5G is a given. It's a question of when.
When, right.
Yeah, and I agree with Balaji too as well. 5G is yet to happen in India. And probably that was one of the reasons why it didn't rank so high. But yeah, ultimately technology is a means to an end. And if you really look at the consumers today or the people today, what you see rank high on the poll is really what has touched them today. So if you see AI, machine learning, IoT, this is integrated into people's lives these days. And, a lot of us are journalists, ex-journalists, working with the journalists. And, you see even journalism being transformed so much because of technology, AI coming into journalism, etc. So we are seeing AI so integrated into our lives already. And we are still, I think, just beginning that journey. I feel that when people experience something, it's something that's high on their radar, and 5G would be a means to an end. It's not an end in itself.
Harleen, your views?
No, I completely agree with what everyone is saying, because the words which resonate with the audience was AI and ML, because it does make a difference. We were just having this webinar a couple of weeks back as part of our Discover Virtual event, where one of the speakers said that HPE stands for Technology for Good. And our main purpose is to make and bring a change to the way people live and work. So I think it's really the outcome, as Balaji was saying, and the trend. And I think it's also short-term memory, you see, because more we read about it, more people know the stories behind which part of technology is actually making a difference. I think it just resonates better and there is a better recall.
Sure, thanks. I think with this, we move to our next segment, because the first segment was largely about what should be the key messages that most of the tech and telecom sector should talk, and what is that behind the scenes technology conversation messages and value that the brand and organization be known for. And like Minita said, the most important piece is storytelling. The story has to be told to someone, and who are these stakeholders? Let's move to the next segment of, what is the importance of the stakeholders and what is the right way or the platform to tell these stories. May I request Anubhuti to play for us the second poll question? Thank you. The question says, choose the two most important stakeholders for any organization who need to be communicated to very frequently. Sorry, there's a typo there. It should have been very frequently. Is that the customer, shareholders, investors, media employees, channel partners, and analysts? Who do you think are the important stakeholders who need to be communicated very frequently? And I would request the audiences, we are open to take questions in the middle of the session as well. So if you can populate questions in the Q&A box, we shall take them in the middle of the session as well. Thank you, Anubhuti. All right. Balaji, I think when we're talking about the stakeholders, the most important understanding is decision makers, right? And these decision makers in an enterprise segment to a consumer setting is very, very different. What do you think are the most important strategies we need to follow to influence them? Where do we catch them? Where are they? What do they want to listen? Gartner recently spoke about two types of consumers. One, which says, recognize me. And the other one says, and if this is a generalization of decision makers today, what do you think are some of the influencing strategies for these decision makers?
Yeah, so I think some of the things that were pointed out earlier by Harleen, Minita, and Tuhina are still relevant. The most important thing is, of course, to be authentic, because that is the one thing that holds you in stead for the long haul. And brands and organizations and their engagement with external stakeholders, with their customers, with their employees, whether they're policy makers or anybody else, or the media, is built around lasting relationships, and that's built through being authentic and having a story that's compelling enough for them to kind of relate to at any point of their journey of engaging with you. So to me, that is the most important thing. The second thing, if you are looking at more from an enterprise perspective, and that does tend to be whether it's small and medium enterprise, the large ones, is about putting the facts in front of them clearly, being transparent about ROI. If you talk about, simplification or business processes in the context of IT and telecom companies that we are part of the digital ecosystem, so to say, it's very important to put the facts out there and talk about why should I undertake this journey from a point of view of investment. The why is clear, but the investment and the ROI needs to be made extremely clear, because that's when they get it, think, all right, now is the time to invest and not sometime in the future, or to put it off. And I think it's important to understand the context if you're dealing with, again, enterprises, their customers. And so as long as you focus on their customers and their outcomes, the chances of you making an immediate impact with the decision makers on why they should choose you on a digital transformation journey becomes that much more evident. And so in a way, it's about saying, put yourself 2 steps ahead, focus on the customer, but the customer's customer as well in a larger context. And therefore, that's in an enterprise context, closer to our consumers as individuals. There again, to understand why are they consuming what they're consuming when they use digital services from a company like Vodafone Idea, or other products or services from a devices player or an HP and so on, is around saying, how do I add value to their lives as they move forward? And I think the last thing which are important is to understand their concerns as well. So if you're influencing, one of the part of the influence strategies is to understand the concerns. So if it's about data privacy, then you need to know about that. If it's about data security, then you need to appreciate and address those in tangible terms, because then you build a long-lasting relationship and a trust mark as well.
Sure. I love the way you ended the conversation with saying it's not just about influencing, it's about keeping a relationship. And I think that's a key takeaway in this entire journey. Anything, Harleen, you want to add? I see you. Yeah.
I was just nodding because I just couldn't agree more to what Balaji was saying. I think whatever he said is 10% true. I was just nodding. I didn't have any point to add.
Sure. Maybe with that continuity, Harleen, what's really changing today? We are still in the middle of the pandemic and we are transitioning into the post-COVID. And for us, what we are realizing is that most of our consumers are end users, and our audience are available on the digital platform today. And what we are doing is we are changing and porting our physical experiences, all that we could have done through an experiential event or could have done in the retail showroom or could have done through a one-on-one meeting. All of that is transforming to a digital experience today. So is there anything you want to leave for communicators like us as to what could be the do's and don'ts? What's too intrusive, what is less intrusive? Because digital is seem to be, take my permission before you knock.
No, I think as we are transitioning from physical to digital environments, and especially at the speed with which we have in the last 3 to 4 months, I think the most important thing to do is try to make it as real as possible. I think there is an opportunity, so just try and create that experience, make it interactive, engaging. But at the same time, I think we need to keep it simple, the story, the message, and the medium. Because in a digital world, I think the most important is to keep everything user-friendly and easy for the audience. I mean, we should know the technology and the challenges it comes with. The third would be, I think, play on the advantages of digital, which were perhaps the limitations of our physical environment earlier. For example, doing an annual event overseas allowed sending only a few journalists to cover. But now I think with all the annual flagship events of major tech companies, including ours, for the first time, it all went virtual. So it did give us an opportunity to widen the net, be more inclusive, have more outreach and audience, and at the same time, save costs. What I think we need to keep in mind, though, is don't overdo it. There is always a temptation to send a reminder mail, a WhatsApp message, a telegram, but I think an overkill can just kill the essence of the communication. A communicator should always know what is enough, when is it enough, because there could be brand fatigue. And I think with the digital environment, something to keep in mind is we can't assume that our audience is readily and easily available. Just because I think all of us are spending a lot of time on screens, because there is so much of noise and there is so much of information which is flowing in from perhaps every quarter, every possible platform or media. We have a distracted audience. So I think it is for the communicators to kind of be guarding the gates, and it's always worse to assume anything, but I think just make communication across all formats, keeping in mind the value of the time of your audience. Make it succinct, relevant to a reader or a viewer. And I think we should be mindful of the time zones. I also believe that don't assume technology will not fail. Always have a plan B ready. Because if a mic can make the most high-profile keynote address a disaster, an internet connection, a technical glitch can throw things haywire for any virtual or digital engagement or communication. So I think those are the do's and don'ts I would keep in mind. There is always this temptation I have seen, visual is definitely more, we all are skewed towards making videos and having powerful visuals, but I think we should keep in mind to not overdo it. Keep in mind how heavy the file is, because if the video is going to take ever long to download, you have lost an audience. People don't have patience. So no matter how powerful your content is, but if the infrastructure is not there to support it, I think the purpose of creating that content is lost. So we have to kind of balance the act. Where an email can suffice, we should not be tempted of just making a video.
Yeah, right. I think we have a checklist ready, Harleen, and this is really helpful. We have a question in the chat box from Manmohan Kohli. He's also asking a similar question. But if I were to really reword this, maybe Tuhina, you can take this up. Basically, he's asking what should we unlearn in the pre-pandemic as a mode of communication to today as a mode of communication?
Well, frankly, Harleen really covered it very thoroughly. I have to say and agree that don't take people for granted. This fatigue that sets in, and in this age of rage, There is only that much space that you can really utilize in real estate in people's mind. My learnings, frankly, just twofold. The emotional stress and just keep the safety of the human mind is very, very important. I think there is a vulnerability, whether we like it or not. Today, every day is a crisis communication, and it's been for ever since the pandemic hit. So we are in a crisis mode. The human behavior is in a transition phase. It doesn't know how to have the balance between boardroom and a bedroom. Frankly, everyone's personal spaces are taken. So I think there is a human behavioral change, and it is going to play out in the long term. So human mind, human spirit, safety, uh, security is critical. And whether we like it or not, we have to be digital savvy. We have to skill up. What we knew yesterday is not going to hold the water today or tomorrow. And finally, I would like to add that role of communicators has expanded great deal. I haven't seen, and Balaji can probably bail us out on that, the amount of communication that government is doing today. In my lifetime, I don't remember a phase where that happened. And the amount of communication, because there is a void, everyone wants to communicate. They are not necessarily sure about it. Use data matrix to keep people honest, including ourselves and executives, that it's not just about saying it. It's important that we do a reception analysis. We understand that the audiences are receiving it well. So I would say keep the learning hats on all fronts right now, and keep yourself and your teams and your ecosystem healthy.
Sure, thank you. Anubhuti, maybe can we have the answers for poll 2? All right, our question was, who is that important stakeholder which an organization should communicate frequently? And the answer is employees and customers. Unfortunately, nothing for analysts. And I think there's a very, very balanced view on how much should a shareholder and a media and channel partners be communicated. So we'll take a cue from this question. Thanks, Anubhuti. It's customers and employees who organizations should be balancing communications and be more transparent, and frequent. So maybe I'll open this to Minita. Minita, I want you to choose between a customer and an employee first, because then my question is that what are these two important communication styles that an organization should follow with that stakeholder type? So is it customers or is it employees that you want to choose?
Yeah, Priti, while people were polling, I was planning on asking that question. Who do you think they're going to poll for? And is it going to be customer or employees is always a tough choice. But I feel that your employees are the way to your customers. They are the people who might be doing all your digital marketing, all your, customer care. They might be the ones who will be, rallying for the cause of business. So, of course, I mean, you need to continually communicate with the employees. So that's my choice. And was there a second part to your question as well?
Yeah, what would be the brand promise and what are the top elements in the communication one should maintain, an organization should maintain?
Sure. So, what really is a brand? A brand promise is really, the experience that you are giving out to your customers or your stakeholders every time you indulge with them or you engage with them. And I believe that every brand promise or every brand has their own brand promise that, so it's very unique to who you are. And what is really important is one that you have the brand promise in every interaction. So the same brand promise, whether it's through to your employees, whether it's through your customer care, whether it's how you interact on social, what is your marketing message, that should be consistent. Number two, we live in a very omni-channel world. We live on digital, we live in real in an analog world, and we are bombarded with the brand proactively, reactively. We engage with people who have interacted with the brand and who will have stories to tell about the brand. The second point is that in an omni-channel world, how are we really taking that brand promise and ensuring that the customer or the stakeholder is bombarded with the same brand promise across all channels that they're interacting with. So that's number two. And number three, and I was absolutely nodding when Harleen mentioned that point, that it's important to not over communicate. It's important for us as personal brands, as brands in business, to find that balance in our communication while sharing that promise in an omni-channel world, that we are doing so in a balanced and empathetic way. So these would be the 3 points that I would mention, Preeti.
Great, thanks. I think I'll come to you, Tuhina, then. Human capital, employees be the most important stakeholder. This is what this audience said, need to be frequently. What do you think should an organization keep in their communication when they're frequently talking to their employees?
Like I said, what employees are really looking at today is cut the clutter, tell me as is. It's not important to window dress the information. It's important to be authentic. Also, of course, you have to deliver with empathy. It's really your extended family that you're talking to. And the rules are the same. Stay authentic and give up-to-date information in a timely manner with empathy consistently. And if there is a problem that is going to show up, then communicate ahead of the cycle, make them a part of that decision making. It's amazing how employees have the ability to pivot when you make them a part of your decision making. So I would imagine just stick to those principles is very, very important today. And the other bit is, frankly, cut the clutter with the employees. Don't take them as granted. They are not bound to listen into every day what you have to say. So choose, respect, as Harleen said, respect their time and communicate with an interactive mode where they can participate. So collaborative tools, interactive communication, authentic and empathy will be my go-to elements.
Sure.
I would just like to add there, it's just like charity begins at home. So internal communication definitely takes precedence when it comes to communicating with your employees more frequently than the outside world, because I think your employees are the true custodians of the brand. They are your brand ambassadors. Don't ever feel that word of mouth is less important than a media story published. It still is the fastest mode of passing on the message. And secondly, I think most of the organizations do put people and employees first before the customers, and I think the poll kind of just underlined the same. Coming back to that brand promise, part of the question which Minita was answering, I think the most important part of any brand promise is the business needs to walk the talk. Every brand storytelling would fail if business is not being perceived in the actual market on the shop floor, living up to its brand promise. And there, the void, that trust void starts to develop. And the brand promise, no matter how beautifully you have wordsmithed it and how well you have kind of created that brand story and amplified it, it's not going to have any meaningful impact.
Yes,
I just have one small point here. I think Minita and Tuhina and Harleen have absolutely kind of nailed it in terms of the points they made. Maybe a couple of small ones in the context of the pandemic is an utmost regard for the safety of your employees. And I think that has to be at the core of everything that you ask them to do. In simple terms, the leadership should not be asking them to do anything that they would not do themselves at any situation. And also to be open to feedback and respond to that feedback in a quick manner, because everyone is dealing with a lot of stress, work, at home, a lot of issues. And so I think that becomes equally important, that you need to have the feedback mechanism and the ability to respond rapidly to concerns that you pick up at times like these.
Right. And I just wanted to add a line, Preeti, in summing. Look, trust is a sum total of your experience consistently through many transactions. It's hard work. So there is never going to be a cool way of cutting this. There is no shortcut to building trust. It's hard work which has to be done consistently day in and day out. And being inclusive is absolutely critical. So a brand promise is as good as the brand delivery, brand promise delivery in that sense. And you have to look at it in a cohesive, unit or a framework.
Right. So I think as we wrap up this section, we started earlier in the first section as to, what are the messages and what are the brand values an organization should follow. Our second segment was about stakeholders and, what should be that storytelling approach that one should really look at. From first session, we heard from Balaji, it's about the customers of the customers. And now I should add who all are serving our customers as well. So an employee and a human factor added to this. And I think that's where the sensitivity is. I want to bring back now the conversation to the shaping world with technology. And that's how CIOs and CSOs, the data officers, and I think they're going to be soon a new designation of mobility officers, because what's really happening today is driving mobility. So maybe I'll go to Balaji and then maybe to Minita and maybe Harleen, if you are seeing this, trend with work from home and the entire workforce going to mobility, are there going to be mobility officers who's going to define the mobility forum and what could be work from home continuity? So what are the trends that we look at in the technology sector?
No, I think some of the kind of far-reaching statements that have been made by companies in this space, where some of the IT companies are working 98% from home, even today, in the process of unlock going on, or our own organization that literally we moved our PCs and our IT equipment very, very quickly to home environments, because all our call center agents had to be operating from home, except for a handful that were allowed by administration to go on a need basis to the call centers. And so the whole emphasis, I think in a way, we knew it intuitively. It's just that this last 3-4 months have accelerated the whole journey to make it happen in a very earnest manner. And having gone through that very rapid transformation, it gives that much more confidence to us as an industry and also for our customers to adopt that very, very rapidly. It's almost become every person's job, right? So anyone who is, whether he or she is a leader or he or she is in the middle management or otherwise, is thinking, how do I now work with this as the new normal for the future? So the evangelists have actually come from this particular pandemic, and for us, therefore, it becomes that much easier to address their asks or demands of us as technology players.
Sure. Minita, Harleen, would you like to take this up? Enterprise mobility, key changing paradigms of the shifts?
I think COVID has acted as a catalyst for digital transformation. So what we were expecting to see in a decade's time, I think it's just kind of happened in 3 to 4 months. For tech companies, though I'm very new to the sector, as you all would know, I just joined in February, and within 4 weeks, I was in a crisis management team working from home. Couldn't have a better induction. I think work from home will be the new normal. It also existed before, at least in the technology world, and perhaps Tuhina and Minita can confirm, because they have been a part of the industry for far more longer years than I have. But I think going forward, it will be the new normal. And mobility was never a question where technology enterprises were concerned. But I think it has just underlined and brought into spotlight that the efficiency of the employee stays the same, the commitment, the productivity of the workforce is even better. And I think it will bring a very new perspective, which will be the women workforce, which never had an opportunity to get into the stream of actual, workforce. Now there is an opportunity for all those engineer women who have been trying, just to balance lives, were not a part of our actual workforce. This is that window, and work from home will allow them in the next couple of years, and we will see new additions, and the competition is going to get stiff.
Yeah, I completely
Minita,
agree.
before you begin this, I have a question in my chat which is very similar. Let me read that out for you. as you answer, it says a company's culture defines the key ethos of organization. In today's teleworking environment, how do fresh outs, new hires absorb the company culture in any input that we as communicators can do to enhance this? This question has come from Priti Khare. And his question basically is in the teleworking environment when it comes to fresh outs and new hires. And because we're talking enterprise mobility, I think it goes back to the culture question again. So when you answer, let me, give me trends in enterprise mobility, might as well address it from a company culture point of view as well.
Sure. So, yeah, absolutely. So one, you're seeing people, organizations like Facebook open up their recruitment to so many parts of the world which were earlier untapped. And I think what this new normal does is that it allows talent from tier 2, tier 3 cities, remote areas to now come and show their worth, be part of the larger growth story of the economy. It takes away all the focus that we used to have in a few metros, in a handful of metros, seeing all the traffic jams, spending hours and hours on the road. For us, I think, I personally feel that our productivity has gone up. We are able to pursue hobbies and stuff that we didn't have any time to pursue earlier. We probably need larger homes now. But having said that, I think it's quite interesting. I'm keen to see how this is going to pan out, because you have access to better human capital from across the world. How is the competition in people going to pan out? All of that is yet to be seen. But I think this new normal is something that is here to stay. We will probably, after COVID, will return to our offices. Maybe it'll be once or twice a week. We all want to have that human interaction as well. HR is going to drive that. IT is going to drive that. All of us, I think, are going to be part of that change. And we will return. And to your question, to the question that's there on the chat, it's very interesting, how we feel that culture is limited to only when we are together. We are all part of so many the things that we are passionate about on Facebook and Instagram, and suddenly they're part of our culture and who we are. And I think that online can help you build culture if you are in team meetings, talking to each other online. It will absolutely induct you well, even if you're a fresher. And of course, we all want to have that connect personally as well. And, we hope that we will also have that once a while office connect too.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Maybe I'll just add one small point. I think excellent points that Tuhina is making. Probably by cutting down commute time, your ability, therefore, to give that much more time to people and freshers, which would otherwise not been able to do, is that much higher. I think it was, I don't know who it was that mentioned it about, Minita mentioned this, or was it Tuhina? One of them mentioned about now able to reach out to a lot more people, or was it Harleen? On folks in media, now you have these mega events happening, you can reach out a lot more people, right? So the same thing is true about, therefore, being able to connect a lot more as executives. It's that much easier to do so. I think that's a big one. And the only other trend I'll say is the focus on privacy of customer data that people therefore now have in a distributed environment, in-home environment, has become that much more. And also the need for data protection. Those two things are, again, big trends in the context of the world that we've moved into.
One more point that I'd like to add, and taking off from what Tuhina mentioned, being authentic is so important. And I feel, being in our homes, being in our loungewear many times as we talk on video calls, has allowed us to be more authentic, has brought our, even though, the boundaries have blurred and between home and office, and, you want to have that space between these two parts of your life. I think it has also brought them together in a way which is more endearing, because you know each other without makeup perhaps, and everyday life, I feel that it sort of opens up people more to their more authentic selves to each other.
I think with this earmarked behavioral change that we see here, there is so much that each organization need to do to keep their customers much more closer. With that, I just wanted to again go back to the realms of technology and maybe to Tuhina. While we are now serving, a lot of employees, a lot of consumers, a lot of customers who are consuming more data, who's consuming more platform, they need more network today. What is it that CIOs and CTOs are thinking while they enable this for the end consumer? Are there any changed priorities for them? Are they looking for more security, or what is that landscape that they need now, which earlier was slightly different?
So the way I am reading this technology is the mainstream today. It is not a function anymore. It is the foundational block. How you talk, how you collaborate, how you transcend customer experience, employee experience, or dealing with the media or analyst or any stakeholders. I think the talk about distributed economy, network and economy that Balaji talked about is real. And in that distributed remote work environment, even if it is not articulated, I think security is always a latent concern. Whether it's an employee, whether it's the HR people, whether it's the customer data, whether it's the employee data, interaction, collaboration, which message is okay for WhatsApp, which one I need to put in a collaborative tool. You can't have closed door conversations anymore. So the landscape has been redefined, and security is underpinned at the very foundational level. I think that is in everything that you talk about, everything, the way you interact, which platforms you use, the conversations we've had at many times, right?
Yeah.
So security is not an option. I think it is the most fundamental ask, the need, and the priority from a technology or a non-technology organization.
Anything, Harleen, you would want to add? What is it that CIOs looking in the landscape today when they are ushering to the customers?
I think I couldn't have said it any better than Balaji and Tuhina. I think security and data privacy are going to be the foremost, concerns for any IT head or the function head. I think it is something which lies right there at the surface, and rest everything comes later. Also, I think the regulators in the country also need to kind of come up to speed. There is still a lot to do where we are concerned. But I think as an enterprise company, this is something which will be, I think this will be the first ask by any customer, going forward. And there is a lot of, with COVID, I think, as I said, it has acted as a catalyst. So the data, there was already a lot of data. There is big data, but I think it has gone on to a fastened speed now, and to manage that data and get insights from that data itself would be another ask most of the CIOs will have, apart from privacy.
Yeah. So I think I'm really glad the way we started this conversation is not about that change is inevitable. It's the rate with which the change is happening. And I think that's what we need to seize as an opportunity when we are in technology and telecom sector. From story to audience to a segment where we discuss what are the behaviors and what could be the trends that can happen in technology sector. We now move on to our rapid fire round, and I'll go alphabetically asking, and therefore the order for me would be Balaji, Harleen, Minita, and Tuhina. And in this rapid fire round, the first one to the group is, as a communicator, where will you invest your last dollar?
I think in building trust.
Sure. Harleen?
I think in content creation.
Minita?
Yeah, so instead of monies, I would say energies. As communication professionals, I would put it in how do you find creative ideas to connect with your consumers.
Interesting. Tuhina? Mute. Sorry, you're on mute, Tuhina.
Sorry, I was just saying it has to be people, because people create magic.
Brilliant. So such a nice variety of diverse answer here. Let me go to the second rapid fire round. And again, we go into the alphabetical order: Balaji, Harleen, Minita, and Tuhina. What is the top skill, behavioral or functional, as a communicator for today?
Authenticity, if it's one, if it's second one, then empathy.
Sure. Harleen?
Agility. I think the flexibility and speed with which a communicator needs to adapt to the crisis, keep pace with technology landscape, understand the changing preferences of the audience and customers, and keeping in mind the cultural sensitivities because of blurring lines or physical geographies. I think agility is the top skill for any communicator in current times.
Minita?
I think it's an entrepreneurial, ability to change with how technology is bringing change in the way we communicate. It's important for us to learn new skills, move fast, and make new rooms for ourselves.
Sure. Tuhina?
Not fair, it's all taken. But I would say, learnability, absolutely. Go back to the drawing board, learn few new skills and move on. World has changed.
Sure, we are on to our last 3 minutes of this session.
Priti, you got 8 different answers to the 2 questions. So that would have been
I can't be happier than this. Sure. So we are towards our last 3 minutes of the session. I'll take one question that's in my prompt screen. This was Balaji in continuation to your statement on safety of employees. So Ravindra Kesavan has asked, safety of employees is important, but the bottom line of the company is company values. What are your take on that?
Look, there is nothing that you have to do which is not done safely. That's absolutely integral. In most progressive organizations, Vodafone Idea is no different. I'm sure all the panelists will stay by this. There is absolutely zero tolerance on matters relating to health, well-being, and safety.
And if I may just add, profits and purpose have to hang in a thin balance and the right balance. And it's profitable to be ethical and safe in the long run. So it's counterintuitive. I don't think they stand in contradiction.
All right. I think towards the last 2 minutes, had this been a regular physical event for us, I could have actually requested stand beside each other for a photo opportunity. But we'll seize this moment here. My team is taking a picture at the back end. So maybe wherever it's a thumb or it's a victory for technology, we'll seize it for 10 seconds. So that's me. Thank you. I think our photographers behind the screen would have got our photo opportunity. With that, I really want to thank you everyone for joining us again. I think we wrap up on the possibilities that technology can usher and help keeping businesses transform from what they are to what they could be today, and for tomorrow for that matter. And I think technology, I'm a pessimist, I'm an evangelist of technology. I always believe technology is one leveler. So with that hope and on that positive note, I want to thank Reputation team today for hosting this session, partnering in terms of curating this amazing session. And on behalf of Adfactors, thank you very much to this panel and for audiences who joined us today. Thank you
so much. Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Reputation today, Priti. To you too.
Thank you, everyone. I think it was indeed a wonderful interaction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priti. This was indeed an enriching and engaging discussion, and I'm sure all our listeners are going away with a lot of learnings. I would like to thank our panelists, Harleen, Minita, Balaji, and Tuhina for their time today and for sharing their insights with us. Thank you to all our attendees. If you wish to revisit the session, it will be available on the Reputation Today YouTube channel. Do subscribe to the channel for regular updates on session videos. The next edition of the Communicators Assembly Point is scheduled for Friday, 31st of July. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at RepTodayMag for registration details and other regular updates. See you soon, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.